In the not-so-shady aftermath, are we willing to get to it, moving beyond our 2 cents, and actually ask for what we want from ourselves? The upcoming full moon eclipse encourages us all to look at where we have been feeding from the scraps of scarcity, particularly regarding our soul's potential. By recognizing how much we already have, honoring what we may have been doing out of habit, and appreciating who we are over-consuming, as we question the familiarity of seeking less than we desire. There is a fine line between nourishment and addiction. Our stories are no different. I'm not an astrologer. I know very little about the planets when considering their orbit, position, attributes, or historical placements. I can, however, hear them. Like all things, in the synchronicities around me and my interpretation of this, simply by appreciating how I feel, honestly, with discernment. A unique, intuitive understanding of the many hidden worlds, communications, energies, and wisdom available. My own cosmic 2 cents, if you will. So the fact that my eyes were drawn to the Corona furniture I'm giving away later, having invested in the same but bigger, whilst G-Unit played on loop in my head as I considered the upcoming lunar eclipse, felt like more than a coincidence. Instead, it became a doorway into the directions currently available. As I leant into not only the lyrics of Little Bit, but my own very real physical restrictions. The coffee I needed, the car I remained unsure of, pulled between sport, looks and convenience. The hand-pan drum I'd not only messaged with an offer, but entered a separate competition for. The upcoming job interviews that could potentially change my present trajectory. The scans I'm waiting on, and of course, the inevitable haircut I've been putting off, despite receiving a voucher towards it at last week's incredibly successful Flows Market event. All held in the in-between of eclipse season, a day after the sun disappeared, albeit a slightly dimmed 93%, as the uncertainty of what I lack brings forth the reality of what I do want. Beyond the movement, change, health, financial assistance, appearance, and no less vital caffeine, to the space that can only come from giving away what I no longer need. I could have held on to it, of course, just in case. Stored it in my garage and hoped it wouldn't go mouldy, or sold it, less than a year old, it's in perfect condition. But by focusing on simply releasing the boxy container that is taking up room in my life, rather than how or why, this piece of furniture has become far more than something I've collected. Designed with Mexican pine, sharing a now negatively charged familiar name with beer, a crown shape within the body, trumpet-like petals of a narcissus daffodil, or the outer rim of an eclipsed sun, and more recently the pandemic. What was once a moment of support, celebration, structure, beauty, if only reflected, or sovereignty, has since 2020 become a collective shared traumatic experience. It encouraged us all to lean into a clearer vision around time, longevity, individual fears, global isolation, and inevitably what really mattered, suggesting a more conscious reality built around what we needed, alongside the understanding of what we didn't, as the structures of who we believed ourselves to be continued to disappear, none more so than the vision we had of desires held onto, our own place within them, and now 6 years on, whether or not we have honestly created this, or all the reasons we can't. Something we're each being encouraged to dismantle with the upcoming eclipse. Completing the Pisces-Virgo oppositions, for this lunation at least, we can expect culmination of perfection through the balance that comes from trusting not only our intuition, but the alignment of its source. From within, the withouts, that suggest we look at where our pickiness, indecision, and at times aloof integrity has become the obsessive identities our less than authentic selves have tried to distract us from. By settling, reducing the dreams we confused as merely individual into the safe limitations of our own personal realities, guiding us to hear the flow, the lyrics of the often misrepresented inner language of desire, rather than continue to find a little bit of this and a little bit of that, hoping it will bring us the fulfillment we have silenced from within. This full moon instead advises us to look at what happens when we finally realize we were always enough. If we wish to change the relationships, roles, and scenarios that, whether we like it or not, we are choosing to continue being part of. Going beyond emotions to the awareness of their maturation, or for some lack of, the upcoming energies will guide us all to bring resolution to the eternal seeking, simply by looking at what we are asking for, and more importantly, where from. That being said, it would be wise to sit with any inflated sensations and egos before taking action, particularly around situations that began in September 2024. Because this 6th of 7 placements, while set to inevitably bring harmony that will steer us towards contentment, will first encourage an acknowledgement of what that means individually, and from here, ensure any self-responsibility is in accordance with the collective. Relationship-orientated in Pisces, this lunar phase advocates we look to any greater need or want, both our own and on a global scale, subsequently initiating what may be required from us in return. Not necessarily in our immediate connections, but work, health, bodies, both celestial, planetary, and of course our own, highlighting factors in each of these areas over the next 6 months to best serve any plans we may currently have, especially if we wish to examine the deeper imbalances in our day-to-day functions, routines, physical structures, and their responsiveness to any held vision, as every one of us faces the continued chaos of uncertainty rising from the hidden truths of our own spiritual well-being. A time to express our soul's potential, or at least be comfortable with its less than clean version in the everyday life we find ourselves creating. An understanding where excess order or extreme control has become our point of faith, we will find ourselves more supported in its predicted crisis, as the increasing lack mentality from dis-ease eventually brings forth the opportunity to delve into our emotional, once and for all recognized, basic need. Of course, eclipses add distortion, or at the very least the sensation of it, none more so than our own, so it would be better served to defer any judgments until we have a fuller picture, rather than feed from the scraps of circumstance. It's not confusing inaction with procrastination. This is less about having all the facts, more working with what we do know, based on where we find ourselves. Remembering, as always, nothing that occurs during eclipse season is strictly new, just the revelation of what has been emerging in the background shadow all along. Taking place in the psychic realms of the seer and mystic, this full moon offers an insight into the energies next year, making it beneficial to note what has made itself seen around this time, focusing on this for the foundation it will bring into 2027. Offering more clarity through the ethereal spaces of dreams and intuitions, especially visions that appear out of the blue. In this we can hope for creatively charged innovations, as long as we ask for more of them and ourselves in their development. Simply by monitoring the illumination of our flaws for the perfection they add to any ideas, alongside the support and acceptance of our own individuality, honouring in the process the truth that not only do tastes differ, but anything that currently repels us does so towards the direction of our own longing. As with any eclipse, secrets may be revealed. It is therefore wise to include ourselves in this truth if we plan to connect with the better suited callings becoming more readily available into the next year, that will only make themselves known to the side of our nature they are drawn to, no matter how we feel about it, and in this the greater desire beneath them to serve with renewed focus and faith. An aspect which with Chiron and Taurus will undoubtedly offer possibilities that have previously been held back through our repetitive patterns, returning from the past to entice future direction. Supporting with the Sun in Virgo and Uranus in Gemini an essential grinding and friction that could hold potential for passionate transformation, especially regarding core vitality, identity and purpose. That with Mercury also in Virgo will bring an intensification to communication and the information these outbursts produce, depending obviously on how we process them, in view of any long-standing situations and their inevitable completion. Can we let go of that which is already gone, resisting the urge to grip to how this should be? What do we really need to get through all that has become familiar, currently being released? Time, love, passion, presence, money, peace. Little by little, regardless of the yearning, we must become more able to witness our often perceived less than human wants to the divine direction they could provide. Because with the moon moving into Aries the next day, joined by Saturn on the 30th, and of course Virgo season itself before this, only through discipline, responsibility, commitment and deliberate discernment of what is required can any expansive grace, agreement, optimism and opportunity towards the bigger picture of Jupiter and Leo be fully appreciated by the end of the month. So see this as a chance to take the courage, emotional depth and bravery of expressing who we are from the solar eclipse in Leo into action. By processing the experiences we have been carrying in a compassionate, meaningful, heart-led manner for ourselves and where able each other, reflecting a physical outcome and consciousness of equal measure that will ultimately do what it always has, align us to our highest potential in time for the autumn equinox. Known as the Sturgeon full moon, a deep partial shadow of 96% will initiate the prehistoric gifts of our own innate wisdom, returning from what has been an extensive underworld journey for many, but only when ready to make space for it. As this final eclipse in Pisces until 2035 illuminates on a collective level, where what has been done can't be undone, only worked with. Opposing Mercury conjunct the Sun, the emphasis instead is to call back the energy being drained on outcomes that are no more and use this to find harmony between our own minds and hearts. The reality is life can shift in the blink of an eye, repositioning us in ways that defy logic or understanding, highlighted this month in the underlying invitations it brings for lasting change. As we in turn question familiar assumptions around who we believe ourselves to be whilst rapidly adapting to ever-shifting circumstances, within an uncertainty that increasingly encourages the redefining of all we have relied on and why, marking the end of attachment, expectations or ways of being that are no longer supportive to our own growth, and the world asking us to embody it. Exposing a moment of truth to see things for how they really are, happening in the first decan, linked to the Eight of Cups in the Tarot. Whilst this placement can, on the one hand, open us to some of the most imaginable, nostalgic, surreal experiences of our own psyche, it is only in how capable we are of connecting to these forgotten aspects of ourselves that we can remember the synchronicity of our own creation, by finding the magic in the ordinary, including through anything we would have wished to be different. Less about bypassing the more shadow-like effect of this positioning, which could leave us impressionable or absorbing the fears of others, especially in a society driven by the debris of what was. The lunar eclipse heralds a potential to distinguish instead intuition from projection, gaslighting from gratitude, and coincidence from prophecy, empowering us all to honour our own individual interpretations and recognise what may need to be released, particularly the subconscious patterns that disguise themselves in the demands we deem ourselves worthy of. Occurring on the 28th of August at 5:18 a.m. in the UK, offering the numerical energies of the Magi, High Priestess, Hierophant, Strength, Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, Devil, Moon, Judgment, and Lovers overall. It is what we create from any insights gained that develops the courage to learn from our experiences, seek intuitive understanding, and initiate more substantial change. In releasing the beliefs that have kept us small within the longest relationship we will ever have, our own, leading us, alternatively, into this dark but no less necessary time to dissolve the boundaries between fantasy, desire, pleasure, and their unconsciousness by merging with them and ourselves, bit by bit. May we each realize, in order to get what we want, we must be willing to admit it. In deepest munay, I ask you now, is it enough? You know where I am. Take care. Kirsty.